for my colleagues in academia, you don't have to go start an OnlyFans account to make money and to get some time to fame. If more academics would just start to share what they know, share their research, and we were to create a revolution of people engaging on X, engaging on LinkedIn, YouTube, heck, on Twitch and TikTok as well. It would just be terrific for them, be terrific for their careers. It's been great for me, and I highly recommend it.
Hello, everyone. It is our pleasure to interview Dr. David Vequist, who is known as the founder and director of the Center for Medical Tourism Research, the first academic research center dedicated to medical tourism in the world. The center is based at the HEB School of Business. For anyone in Texas, you will know what HEB means. And that is part of the University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas, where Dr. Vequist also taught an MBA class and is still partially teaching an MBA class for many years. And that is very interesting, of course, for us. So thank you for taking some time to talk to us, Dr. Vequist.
Of course, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So first, when it comes to businesses and online visibility in combination with trust, I'm very interested in what key trends you have identified that healthcare professionals and business owners should leverage to increase their online visibility and also attract an international audience.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind, a little bit about my background
Mhm.
to explain how I came up with this.
Yes, please.
When I came out of graduate school, I ended up, I wasn't wanting to be a professor. I actually wanted to work in industry. And so I worked the first as a consultant with Ernst& Young, and then later worked with HCA, which is one of the largest publicly traded healthcare companies in the world, in a subsidiary that they had here in San Antonio. And then eventually, a friend of mine convinced me to drop out and join academia. And so, as I was progressing through my career, I noticed that content is the key to basically helping you grow your career. As a consultant, we had something called quals, which were qualifications, which was what you had done in the past, and it was important to tell a good story. And then when I got into Fortune 500 and was intent on growing my career in the industry, I found out that it was all about updating your resume to be able to talk about the specific differences you made in the position or role or functional area that you were in. And so I kind of brought that with me into academia and in terms of helping to grow the Center for Medical Tourism Research. The University of Incarnate Word is not as well known as many other universities that we have in Texas, including places like the University of Texas and Texas A&M and Rice and SMU and places like that. So to be able to get the media attention and be able to find people that would follow you or be interested in you, I had to have content. And so, fortunately for me, in my area of research, it was easy to finding good, engaging content that would get attention directed to my center and the research we were doing.
So when you say content, what type of content do you mean, and also what channels of distribution do you prefer?
Yeah, so that was the part of the learning curve, if you will. So I've noticed, for example, you have a program for helping people develop more followers on LinkedIn, and that's obviously been a very important channel, distribution channel, if you will, for me. And you have to know your audience on LinkedIn. The type of content that obviously does well is going to be, if you will, a little bit more intellectual. You can do a little longer form content. Has to be something that will inform people and also kind of try to give them some information that they can use to then perhaps make good decisions about their business that they're running. So that's one. Obviously, when it came to Twitter, which has evolved a lot, or X as they're as the lot's calling it now. It's evolved a lot over the years, and so what I've noticed is that they're looking for more truth telling. They're looking for, if you will, kind of public media, public journalism. So content and information, data and statistics that most normal people don't get to hear from the traditional media channels. And then Facebook tends to be a little bit more lighthearted and tends to be not quite as, if you will, career focused. It's something that people want to hear about things that are going on perhaps in your life. But internationally, there's still a strong following on Facebook, using it as a news channel. So again, each channel has had its purposes. YouTube and TikTok and all those, same thing. Each channel has had a purpose, a specific segment, and then so different content can be displayed in different ways on each of those. And that helps you to get more visibility. Myself, not only as a professor in a school of business, but also as a researcher. And then also, I've done my own consulting the entire time I've been a professor. So it helps me to get visibility to help me find consulting work and things of that nature as well.
Talk about a little bit more about the specific benefits. You could get your own consulting, but what about for the medical tourism research? Does it also get more eyes on people that may want to donate or,
Correct.
funding wise, and then may want to collaborate with you on certain research or even attract certain researchers? Talk about all the benefits.
Yeah, so all of those above. That was a very good list of some of the benefits. So again, we weren't the type of university that was typically going to get millions of dollars in government grants. And plus, my area of research is very controversial, and it's obviously something that major funding organizations in the United States, whether it's the AMA, American Medical Association, or AHA, American Hospital Association, or others, are not in favor of. Even I was told at one point by somebody from the RAND Corporation, which is the largest research corporation in the world, that they feared to do too much research on medical tourism as a trend because it would lead to lack of funding to them in the future because they didn't want to, if you will, anger certain constituents or certain powerful stakeholders. So we knew weren't going to get a lot of research for doing this very controversial work, which is the
Why is it
stu-
controversial? Just for people that have no idea, like I have no idea.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm sorry. So essentially, it's the study of people traveling for healthcare, which doesn't sound all that controversial, particularly when you're looking at domestic. And that's people that are traveling, particularly for, say, from rural areas more into urban areas where there's access to more specialized care. It's people that are traveling because they want to get the best procedure, perhaps in their country or in the world, and so they'll travel within. But it's also people traveling internationally, and that's the one that has, if you will, become the most controversial because, again, if you're an American doctor or American dentist, it's competition you probably don't want is somebody going across the border into Mexico, for example, and then accessing either dental care or some other type of care at 60, 70, 80% of the price that you would pay out of pocket typically in the United States. And so that's the type of research that has gotten the most attention and also creates the most controversy and has interesting stakeholders involved.
And then
So
going back to the benefits. Sorry for the segue.
no, no, that's absolutely. I actually should have explained it myself. So thank you for the for rerouting us to that. So, yeah, in terms of the benefits, obviously. So when I started this research, again, I was one of the only few academics that was focusing on that as my area of research. Again, I was coming from a smaller school, and so in order to promote the research, I started using the internet in a very naive way initially. I have to be honest, but I realized that I was getting a lot of attention and a lot of followers, particularly internationally, that were very interested in this research, and they were hungry for more information in this research because, again, there wasn't a lot of academic research at that time when I first started. And so that just led into a thing. I'll be very honest. I think I've been very blessed, very humbled that during the last 15 plus years, I've been in the New York Times, I think 5 or 6 times. I've
Wow.
been in some of the largest English publications published in the world, including here in the United States, AARP Magazine, which is huge, got a huge readership. Had a whole feature that interviewed me on that. And some of the largest English publications that are coming out of China and India. I've been in on CNN, live interview on CNN. Just had a documentary in Forbes, almost a 30-minute documentary that featured me talking about domestic tourism, excuse me, international tourism into Houston and international patients coming into Houston, and then been on every, I think, got interviewed by Ari Shapiro from NPR Live, USA Today. My gosh, I'm missing
You were
hundreds of
everywhere.
Washington Post. You name it. If you Google my name, you're going to see lots and lots of references over the years. And so I am just very proud of my strategy that I made it work. I wish I had a program like this that could have helped guide me along my way in the early years. But my gosh, I would highly recommend this for people that are trying to grow both their reputation in a field as well as potentially trying to help their organization, because it has helped. I mean, our university's been around since 1881, and there's never been a professor that's been featured in the New York Times, and I've had it 6 times in the last 15 years, and so that has allowed the university to gain a lot of views, a lot of credibility, a lot of awareness, which helps us in recruiting, helps us in a variety of things, and it's also helped my career. So benefits. So from that, I've been able to get consulting projects with the UN that gave me funding to write a white paper on the impacts of medical tourism internationally, particularly in Latin America. That's allowed me to consult with several countries around the world. Most recently, we just finished a consulting project with the Mexican government, particularly the ministries of economy and tourism. Prior to that, I've worked with Germany, I've worked with Turkey, I've worked with Malaysia, I've worked with Korea, and also I've been able to travel the world. My the awareness and the knowledge of my research has allowed me to be able to travel the world mostly for no cost. Most of these locations, conferences, government organizations, NGOs, others have reached out to me and said, "Hey, listen, if you'll just come speak, we'll cover the cost of your airfare and your hotel." So it's been the benefits have been enormous, incredible.
I love it.
So, if someone wanted to have a chance at getting into one of those mass media outlets, what would you recommend? When should you start? What is the strategy? You also mentioned good storytelling or storytelling in general, which I find interesting that a researcher is aware of that. So, can you touch on these points?
Yeah. So the if you think about it, there's been this interesting phenomenon between academic research and business over the years, and the social media and this rapidly growing digital media, digital marketing has been a very important part of it. Have you noticed that trends move faster than academia can study it? So, as
Mhm.
another subject we're going to talk about is AI, generative AI, Chat GPT, and the like. Which, if you think about it, I mean, we weren't talking about this more than 6 months ago, in other than vague terms. But now, obviously, the usage of it has gone up enormously in a variety of fields. And so academic research has always, if you will, continued to fall behind, particularly if we look at through, say, the history of Silicon Valley. They were doing things and pushing things For example, just a term of e-commerce. E-commerce was pushing boundaries and doing things and finding ways to make things happen before academic research was being done on it. So, in other words,
Mm.
the academic research wasn't paving the way. It wasn't trying to understand the barriers or issues or constraints or anything, the good, the bad, the ethics of it. It wasn't looking into any of that before Bezos was pushing Amazon in ways that people didn't understand. So we're almost like the tail of the dog. So we are actually
Mm.
occurring almost after the fact. So medical tourism has existed since the beginning of civilization. There's evidence that that people would go to Egypt for procedures. There's evidence that the Romans were going into places that are now called Turkey and Switzerland for Baleineau or hot springs therapy, mud baths, things of that nature. All of this has existed for a long time. The media coverage around it only occurred after I started creating content. So, sorry, long answer to get to your question, but the answer is that we need, if you're in academia, for example, and you'd like to build your awareness of your research, you need to start revealing authentic, good content sooner because it's already being done by somebody, by some entrepreneur, some fast-moving person that is, as Mark Zuckerberg used to say about Facebook, breaking things, moving fast and breaking things. So I found that my experience was having looked at the business and the world and as an entrepreneur myself was that I just had to move faster and get content out there. So I couldn't wait until it came out in the paper. I had to create the content and then start posting about the content even as the paper was going through the process of being accepted. And people wanted to know things, and they were already moving, and they were already thinking, and they were already creating. So I just need to help them by trying to again share as much as possible, overshare to some extent, not necessarily about your personal life, but about your research, about your thoughts, about the findings that you're having. And then that helped me to have better content. And when I had better content, I found a better audience,
Mhm.
more of an audience.
So I know when you teach your MBA classes, a lot of your students are they're professionals already, and they do that a little bit later in their career. Would that be a correct statement?
So actually, the we started right before the pandemic. We started doing a class called the Cornerstone. It's
Mhm.
a first class in the MBA program. It's particularly to get people that are coming into the MBA program that don't have a traditional business degree. We have more people, for example, that are getting biology degrees, music degrees. In fact, I have a student this semester. Was a music major, an undergraduate. She and her husband started a digital marketing firm, and now she's in the Cornerstone. And so I have a variety of students like that that have non-traditional business degrees in the MBA program, and we wanted to get them up to speed. And so one of the things that we're doing in the Cornerstone, in fact, they're turning in the projects this week on that, is get them to understand and practice their media presence. So what they do
Mm.
is they give them a topic area and then they focus on it, and they're supposed to develop a 3-minute video, an interview
Mm.
format very similar to
I
this.
love this.
Yes, and so that I actually started just doing that recently, very recently, for young people because, my gosh, as you 2 know, and you're, telling other people about, almost every day, is that this is the new normal, sharing.
And getting on camera
Getting
too.
on camera, getting comfortable with the idea of being knowledgeable, having an area of knowledge, having an area of expertise, and being able to share that. Now, it's difficult if you don't know about a subject because then people are going to ask you questions and you're going to hem and haw and things like that. So it's having doing the work. So I always hear about athletes that say that if if you think what I do is easy, it's because you didn't see me in the weight room. You didn't see me all the hundreds of hours, thousands of hours I've spent in my career lifting weights, running fast, using various equipment to improve the physicality that I have. Same thing is true when it comes to having a media presence, being able to develop good content. You have to put in the time outside of the camera. So, in my job, I'm very fortunate. I get an opportunity to read constantly. And so, being able to read and also being immersed in a particular subject matter that I'm particularly interested in, it allows me to focus on that. And then also, I get to learn a little tangential subject matters. For example, digital marketing. I'll learn a little bit about because AI is going to be obviously very disruptive in healthcare. So I get to learn about these other subject matters as well. So I tell my students about the T person. So you obviously need to be able to go wide across a variety of content, but then on certain types of content, you need to go also deep or long. You need to be able to go very extensively into that. So I can do that in the several subject matter area. And so for those, I feel very comfortable speaking to the media and bringing content.
I have a question. So, what's the resistance with more academics building their personal brand? Like, obviously, they're probably more introverted, but they have an advantage that if you've been an academic for 25 years, you probably master at least like one subject matter, have done a lot of research, and I see a lot of resistance with them, especially getting on video. What is that?
I think that there's a huge hidden market in that because if you look at my colleagues over at the Harvard Business School, they're very comfortable in both being. I used to refer to it as a warrior priest. The idea that you're able to get into your ivory tower and be able to speak the holy words and learn the holy words, but then when it comes time to defending your family, you're able to come out of the tower and go out and wield shield and sword and do what you need to do. And at Harvard, it's well known that the requirements for getting tenure, and it's actually very simple, is you have to be the best in the world at whatever it is that you research on. So if you want to be Dr. Michael Porter, the father of modern strategy, you just have to be the best. And if you're the best at that, then you're going to get tenure. So they don't have as much of a problem with that, but of course it's expected of the university of being known, seen, and heard, and that's the three things that I tell my students quite a bit, and also I tell any of my colleagues that will listen is that you need to be known, seen, and heard. If you're not, then you're probably not making as much of a difference as you could. You're making a difference by teaching a class and hopefully mentoring young people. You're making a difference by doing some research that goes into an academic journal or a book chapter, a book that gets into the public awareness and adds to the body of knowledge, we say in academia. But what if you were able to extend that even further? What if you were to offer mentoring to not just tens of people in your class or perhaps hundreds, but thousands or millions of people around the world? What if you were able to take the knowledge, again, that you're putting into a paper, which is going to oftentimes not be readily available to people? At least there's going to be behind a paywall, or it's going to be difficult to access unless it gets into some type of open content, and those are still fairly rare in academia. So therefore, you could have an impact on a much larger group of people. So I personally, I'm with you. I think that more people in academia. I think there's a thirst for this. I think there's an interest for this by people in academia, but they don't know how to do it, and they're worried about failing. They're worried about the scorn of their colleagues for talking about something that perhaps is still being debated. They're worried about the university having a veto power over what they might want to say, and so so some of my colleagues are worried about things like that. But my suggestion would be that, like you said, that more people in academia that would like to not only, again, this is a little self-serving, enhance your own career, help your own career, but also, my gosh, the broader influence that you can have on potentially millions of people worldwide by sharing what you know, by sharing your forecast and projections, by sharing information that's going to be coming out in some academic tome that's going to be put behind a paywall somewhere. on the internet, that, oh my gosh, that it could be so much better. So I don't know exactly the resistance, but I wish we could wake some more up and we could get some more sharing. Real quickly, I'm sorry, I know this is I'm answering long, but on Twitter, on X, Elon Musk has talked long and hard about how this free speech is also, if you look at some of the content, particularly the longer form content that has now come about, you obviously have to pay on X to be able to post long form. But some of the longer form content is incredibly intellectually stimulating. I mean, facts, figures, data, information. This citizen journalism has bred this kind of new enlightenment period. For the internet, where it's not just people laughing at stupid memes on Reddit or 4chan. It's actually people sharing content, oftentimes very controversial, but that is truly getting very intelligent people from a variety of different fields discussing it. And each person brings a little bit of knowledge from their specific specialty area. I've seen some of the world's smartest people in the specific areas discussing things around medicine and politics, and geopolitical issues, and science and AI on X that are just absolutely fascinating. And so we need more of that. And we need more professors that are willing to kind of break the mold of thinking of what they are, which is, some stodgy person that only reveals information sporadically, periodically on some place that may or may not be publicly available. We need to actually be thought leaders.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I see people that are, my age that are building multi-million dollar brands around just sharing like stoic
Yeah.
thoughts on stoicism. And then I think about my philosophy professor in college who's been
And
teaching these classes for 25 years that could dominate. He could go in there and just plow through what those, 28, 30-year-olds know, and they're just not doing it. I don't think they understand the true opportunity. Like, even if they had a private newsletter, a couple bucks a month, they get a few thousand subscribers. I mean,
Yeah, and there's such an appetite for it too. I mean,
exactly.
there truly is. I saw an interesting statistic that the most common, if you will, job function or job area that Gen Z, the newest, youngest 20-year-olds are interested in is science and technology and engineering and math. That they're interested in these STEM jobs. They find them as the most intriguing. You could say the millennial population was more interested in, if you will, the media side or the entertainment side or the creative side, the creative class. But the Gen Zs are very interested in this idea of technology. They're interested in all these fast moving, and so there's an appetite for, tell me more. Tell me how this works. Like, how does Stoicism work in conjunction with the world of technology? I mean, how are we going to exist in a day and age where we're wearing technology, where technology is listening to us constantly, and yet you're expected to be able to think calmly through thoughts and to be focused on the specific subject matter in order to come up with a clear understanding and better decision making on it. That, my gosh, you did a podcast on that alone, and I suspect you would get followers.
Yeah, I love it.
So I was wondering, specifically in medical tourism and connecting that to being on camera and building trust with patients that are potentially traveling across
Mhm.
the world, and knowing and understanding that that trust factor is important for any business person.
Yes, very much so.
Did you have insight into research that connects being visible on camera with the trust building factor and how that impacts the business?
Yeah, it comes back to digital marketing basics, which is obviously having good content. The more professional your content is, the more authentic it is, the more it can be verified, if you will, by additional sources. Having citations along with that, or being able to back up what you're suggesting with things like patient testimonials. Anything that you can do to have good, solid professional content. And then goes back to digital marketing basics, which is it engaging?
Mhm.
So you can have great content, but if it's not in an engaging format, or if it doesn't have the right color scheme, so there's a bit of the creative associated with it. So engagement is obviously key. So as you both know
Mm.
from analytics that you look at, and most of these social media channels, if we have higher engagement, we get a chance to collect more of these eyes, views, listens that are going on. So the engagement is key. And then after that, then obviously we're talking about being able to get click throughs or being able to get people to another site. And then that is also key. And so for me, it was always a difficulty because the university didn't give the support that it probably should have for years and years and years when it came to my medical tourism research. So we had a URL, which I personally picked out for the university and gave it to the administration and said, "Hey, let's do medicaltourismresearch.org and let's have that as this URL." And they were like, "Okay, okay, we'll do it." And then they never gave me an actual space for a website. And so it was always a redirect to a site on the university, which I completely understand. That's not how Harvard does it when they do their centers. For example, the Kennedy Center has its own website. You have to have a redirect, a place where people can go for more information. So kind of like the T we were talking about, where you have this knowledge, people are reading, get some broad knowledge, basic knowledge about it, and then they go, "I'd like to go deeper," and they want to go down. So same is true if you're a facility. So you have to have a variety, a baseline of data and information on a variety of social media channels, and people want to go deeper, and then they're going to go to a website, and then at that point the website or this kind of source, it could be a Facebook site, whatever it is, that source of knowledge is where they're going to go, and they're going to find additional information which they now say, "Wow, this seems real, this seems like a real thing, this seems trustworthy." At that point, they make a conversion, and then from there they decide to reach out, and then it's about your customer services. Do you follow up on your emails? Do you follow up on the direct message, the WhatsApp message that you send out? If they make a phone call, whatever, do you have somebody that's capable and competent, that will, and caring, by the way, listen to them and hear what they say, and then from there you might be able to get booking. So, quite frankly, yes, the answer is good content leads to opportunities, but it's got to be engaging. And then from there, you got to have a homepage, or you have to have something that allows people to then find out more about you, where you can.
Any specifics about video that in term where it would perform better? Do you know of any research?
Yes, yes, absolutely. The research is just outstanding on that, mostly in terms of its engagement potential. So not how it's actually, we even find it interestingly, this kind of a continuum of engagement where it comes from a textual versus pictorial content to moving pictorial content. So, for example, it's very easy to use basic editing software and take pictures and put them together so the pictures have a moving effect, very similar
Mhm.
to a GIF. That is even more engaging than pictorial content by itself. And then, obviously, when you add video, the idea of these flashing images as you're going scrolling down a timeline, for example, capture you just enough so you're trying to say, I wonder what this is about. So obviously the headline is key. The moving images surrounded by good graphics and imagery. And then if you got video along with that, then people will spend some time to listen. Now, you're familiar with the analytics probably even better than I am. Obviously, you're not going to keep them for a long time, depending on the type of content, but you can get them long enough. This is the TikTok experience, right? You can get them long enough that you can get them engaged and interested in your content. And as soon as you get a like or a follow or a share or something of that nature, my gosh, then you're off to the races. Just get
Mhm.
more of those.
Are you on TikTok, Dr. Vequist?
I am not currently. My content actually doesn't probably wouldn't play so well on TikTok. I've considered doing some other types of brands just in terms of mentoring TikTok, because as I'm getting to the twilight of my academic career, my professional career, what I'd like to do is continue to mentor young people. I'm very passionate about several things. One is, first of all, something that you and I both share, which is entrepreneurship. I think there's nothing better you can do for the world than create small business. I mean, even if we're talking just starting an Etsy site where
Mhm.
you're selling something that you make in your garage, or getting involved in an incubator, an accelerator, or just getting out there and becoming an influencer and trying to sell ideas or sell content that you bring together, anything, everything, do it all, just because the entrepreneurship makes the world a better place. And we actually have
Mhm.
hundreds of years of empirical evidence that shows that that's helping, and that's the whole premise of Dr. Pinker from Harvard's book. Enlightenment Now talks about all these people that have been solving the world's problems for hundreds of years, a piece at a time. So we can't solve world hunger
Mhm.
today in one fell swoop. It has to be picked apart piece by piece by piece by piece, and that's what we're doing through entrepreneurship. And so that I'm passionate about. I'm also passionate about young people not falling into the traps of thinking that they're going to be necessarily famous overnight. They can, but that they need to develop themselves. And development means a slow, ongoing process. So it's very important in terms of physical. When you start to work out, I'm at 50. I find that I need to continue to work out. So it's the law of thermodynamics is the entropy, which is if you're not growing, then you are decaying. And so I'm very passionate about telling young people they need to continue to grow. And that means reading, that means physically working out, that means continuing to expose yourself to perhaps uncomfortable situations and scenarios so that you learn to work your way through that. And I don't think there's been a lot of that. It's not pushed by K through 12. It's not pushed in college. Many college classes have become dumbed down. It's just a PowerPoint that the instructor clicks from slide to slide, reads the slides, and then you take the test that's given by the textbook. And so people haven't learned truly what development is. And development is grinding, it's putting in the work. And entrepreneurs know that because, my gosh, every day is a grind.
I just listened to this podcast episode with Joe Rogan and Sam Altman,
Mm.
the
Yes,
co-founder of
very.
OpenAI.
Yep.
Yeah, and he said in Y Combinator that the founders used to be like, 25. Like the best
Mhm.
founders used to be like 25, and he's like now all the founders are, it's like the same generation, the millennials, they're like 35, 38, 40, and he's like I don't see enough 25-year-olds willing to take risks, and he said it was a very big concern of his
Yeah.
that and he doesn't know where it's coming from. He's like, I want to blame the education system, but it's probably multifaceted. And he's like, there needs to be people willing to take more risks in our society for it to drive it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been, there's the double-edged sword of the influencer generation, and also if you've seen the cultural trends. It's so funny how all these things all intersect. But the idea of nepo babies, the idea of, well, I can't be a Kardashian because I wasn't born into that family, and so therefore the chances of me ever starting a business that becomes extraordinarily big or famous is not going to happen because I wasn't born into the Kardashian clan. And the idea that well, those people on Twitch that have millions of followers either happen by the time you're after your first couple of videos, or it doesn't happen. I have to do something really extraordinarily, really wacky or crazy, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen initially, and they don't realize. And I don't think there's a lot of education on the whole idea of the grind.
Yeah.
Um,
That person took 4 years of doing it every day to
yeah,
grow that
yeah.
Twitch
And
following.
and by the way, there's been interviews with people like Mr. Beast and stuff like that, talking about the amount of development that he went through, and the amount
Mhm.
of current expenditures that he spends to make his show more professional every single day. And it's about working out. It's about doing the grind. It's about developing. It's about getting better. So it's not going to happen. Not everybody's going to touch lightning, the first time out when they post a video of them playing Mario Kart on Twitch. It's just it's not going to happen that way. You have to continue to grow and develop, and your content has to get better. And it's not taught. So I have my gosh, I had an interesting thought. Hopefully, I still have it there somewhere around that, which was that it's just you find that education has been declining in quality for quite a long time in the United States. And by the way, we're not alone. We're seeing similar kind of educational declines in other countries around the world. And part of what people aren't learning is, again, that content doesn't come to you right away. There's a very famous study done in the, I want to say, mid 2010, probably sometime around, say, 2014, 15. The Department of Education reached out to a professor, and I'm so sorry if I'm forgetting where she went. I want to say she was at Stanford. Stanford or Princeton. Anyway, so she was an education professor, and her focus was on mathematics. And Department of Education reached out to her and said, "So tell us what the research says about the best way to teach young people mathematics." And so she came up with a guide that was paid for by federal tax dollars and presented to the Department of Education. And they instantly went meh and threw it away. And it's in some warehouse with the Indiana Jones Holy Grail and stuff like that. And the reason that they didn't like it was that her guide contained phrases, and I'm going to give you a couple of these phrases because I remember them still to this day, which is, "Oh, your brain is hurting? That's good. That means it's growing." This was a statement that she suggested that kids learn. She wanted to remove the idea that there is a math person. Yes, there are the Sheldon Coopers, the fictional character, Albert Einstein's real person, that actually can do the theoretical physicists, that can do math in their head, theoretical mathematicians, same thing. They're very smart people, very wired, and very rare. But almost everybody can get better at math. And I know lots of people, particularly millennials, don't believe that because they have not been told that. They were even given excuses by their professors and their teachers. "Oh, it's okay. You're not a math person." There is no such thing. The education research, the empirical research shows that there is no such thing. It's like telling a person that if you're physically able to move, say, a body part, an arm, a leg, something of that nature, can you improve upon it? Can you improve your biceps if you're able to capably move your arm? You're not disabled, you're not paralyzed. And the answer is yes. And you look at people in
And it
wheelchairs,
hurts.
and from the waist down, they may be immobile, but from the waist up, you see these people that focus on like wheelchair sports and stuff like that, and they're buff, they're huge, and it's because you can improve it. And so that's what her advice was to the Department of Education, but they threw it out because they knew that the educational system, the TEA and other organizations, would never accept this. They would never want to go to kids and say, "It's okay, you're hurting right now, and that's because you're growing." When you lift weights, you actually tear the muscles. You get this tearing sensation, that feeling of burning, and then after you come back, you find out that your muscles are bigger because your muscles have said, "I'm not going to allow you to tear me again. I'm going to come back bigger and stronger." We need to do the same thing, resiliency, and realize that growth does cause you to some uncomfortableness, and you need to get used to that discomfort, and you need to be able to rise above it and grow and become bigger.
I love that. It's so true.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I want to use the rest of our time to talk a little bit more about AI. And we see a worrying number of people who have not exposed themselves to it yet.
You want me to bring up my poll, Shankar? I think
Yeah,
this
Sure.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
did this poll and it was pretty wild to me, the results, and also the kind of divergence of way of thinking. Like, I didn't know that there was such a divide. So I did a poll on LinkedIn and it has 4,300 votes. So this is
Yeah.
4,300 professionals.
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you use ChatGPT daily?" 32% said yes, 22% said no, but weekly, and then 46% said no, not often, like,
Yeah.
you know. And then there were a lot of professionals, which was the surprising thing to me, in the comments that was like, "Never, nor will I ever.
Hmm.
No, I still use my brain.
Yeah.
Never used it, never will." So, and they're very adamant on this.
Mhm.
And basically, they're trying to form this logic that if you use AI, you're not using your brain anymore. And it was pretty astounding to me. So,
Yeah.
what do you see on the ground with academics?
So the I see fear, loathing, people that think that this is going to somehow replace teaching and mentoring. It's going to be a disruptive, but in a negative way, influence. That's the general fear. If I had to suggest for now, again, it's going to be a diversity of opinions, but in general, that would be, I would suspect, the majority opinion of academics. So there wasn't much good that came out of and I know I'm dating myself, but the Matrix movies, the very first Matrix movie was obviously phenomenal. But then we had a couple other Matrix movies Coen Brothers did after that, which were forgettable. But in the third movie, as I recall, one of the lessons that you can kind of draw from this is that the machines can't exist without us, and we can't exist without the machines. And you think about, a wheel standing in the middle of a field. It doesn't without the energy pushing on it, it's not going to roll. If you think about these computer systems, these enhancements, if you will, that have come about via technology. My belief is, yes, obviously, self-aware machines could potentially have negative impacts in the future, and obviously we're going to have to guide it. But so can nuclear energy have a negative impact on humanity if used the wrong way. AI and the general use of AI is just a tool, and it needs to be thought of as that. And again, it's not. So we actually have specific research to show this. The greatest impacts we've had, at least in things in terms of like healthcare, is not AI replacing the radiologist, but a radiologist and AI working together to be able to show improvements in the diagnosis of, say, cancers based on imaging. So, working together, the both man and machine, man and AI, is the way forward. Some recent studies and some case studies have shown that professionals using AI increase their overall productivity by 66%. This is a controversial opinion, by the way, in terms of productivity, because you're going to hear we have, in the healthcare industry alone, between Kaiser Permanente and now Walgreens, we have, I think, 150,000 people going on strike. And then we just had the writers and the actors going on strike, and directors before them, because of, in many ways, AI. And you probably, if you read the news, you know that one of the big sticking points for most of these contracts was, you're not going to have AI replace us, are you? Well, think about the
Is that why
creative
they're
ability.
striking? I don't watch the news. Is that why they're striking for the
Yes,
Walgreens and stuff?
absolutely. So, yeah, you've seen many of these movies that have the same trope, which is the idea of, this character that is an AI that develops its own personality. And there was even a movie specifically about, using that as an actress in a show. Well, think about it. If you don't have to pay Tom Cruise, $100 million for his next Mission Impossible, and instead we're able to use an AI generated actor that did its
That doesn't give
lines,
you
and
attitude.
it doesn't give you attitude, whatever. And my gosh, that movie. So think about it: a Mission Impossible movie where you can remove the human actor's salary from it. It makes money overnight. I mean, just if not domestically, definitely internationally, as soon as that movie goes out. So the next Marvel movie, which features superheroes, which are all AI generated, you don't actually have to have actors. My gosh, it's going to make money. So that's been a sticking point. The actors are worried about it. The script writers, obviously, incredibly worried about it. The directors actually were the first one to settle. Gosh, how long? It's been probably 6 months ago. And if you'll notice, there was some news at the time. One of the components or the pieces they put into the directors' contracts for all the directors in Hollywood is that no AI can by itself direct a movie. That was actually a specific provision put into those contracts. So everybody's worried about this. The academics are worried about it. The movie industry is worried about it. But again, we're not seeing the research, which is working in conjunction. And Dr. Kahneman, Nobel Prize laureate, excuse me, father of modern thinking, thinking fast, thinking slow, has addressed this in a variety of his speeches and research over the years. And it's man working together with the machines. Machines and AI by itself only know what content they have available to them, and sometimes that content may be flawed or outdated. So the man offers additional perspective, and then we have this wonderful creative ability, which so far is very difficult to replicate, to be able to bring an additional flair to, or flourish, if you will, to what the AI comes up with. So I'm not overly worried. Now, is it going to be disruptive? Yes. Is it going to change certain types of careers? Yes. So I was recently quoted on the national desk, part of the Sinclair news network, which distributes their news to millions of people, on the AI's influence, particularly on jobs. And interestingly, the research is showing us that it's going to influence more female-based occupations than male-based occupations. And so the news reporter was really interested in that. So I sent her the research that was done on that. And that was because, more men than women are in construction field. That's not going to be affected by AI as much. More men than women are in electrical or plumbing or carpentry. More men than women are in CDL positions, long distance truckers, drivers. Again, is that going to be impacted by AI? Yes, but still the jobs are going to be primarily men, and there's still going to be jobs there. So women are involved in more creative types of occupations. Women are involved in some kind of caretaking occupations that can at least some way be outsourced to these technologies. So that way will be disruptive and unfortunate for women's employment, perhaps in the near future. But I think the answer is to be able to figure out how to use AI effectively, as you've pointed out in your poll, or at least the results came back from your poll, to be able to be open to the fact that this is another tool. This is another hammer or a screwdriver in your tool belt. And my gosh, start using it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This has been such a great conversation. Tell us again, if people want to learn more about your work, where do they go?
Absolutely. So the Center for Medical Tourism Research is part of the University of the Incarnate Word, and I'm also a professor in the HEB School of Business Administration. My research can be accessed at medicaltourismresearch.org, so medicaltourismresearch.org. And then obviously you can follow me on LinkedIn, you can follow me on a variety of other formats. LinkedIn's my preferred one for most of my professional activities. Can I just make a call again for my colleagues in academia, perhaps those even in K through 12 education? There are so many wonderful opportunities. You don't have to go start an OnlyFans account, right? To make money and to get some time to fame. You can take, as you pointed out, my gosh, what a beautiful idea, a philosophy professor talking about the topics of the day. If more academics would just start to share what they know, what they forecast, what they project, share their research that's going to be coming out in academic papers, and we were to create a revolution of people engaging on X, engaging on LinkedIn, engaging, putting out more content on YouTube, heck, on Twitch and TikTok as well. It would be terrific for them, be terrific for their careers. It's been great for me, and I highly recommend it. And if we can do just even this little bit of impact, if we can have this much impact on helping people to be known, to be seen, and to be heard, I think they would find it be very beneficial to their careers as it has been to mine.
I love it. This was a great interview.